Okay, so the Eagles roster is set, or sort of, because Howie Roseman admitted more moves are coming and the Birds just made a few intriguing additions to the practice squad. In this video, I'll get you up to date on all things around the roster, look into why Asante Samuel Jr. officially won't come to Philly, provide a promising timeline for Nakobe Dean, and share why Lane Johnson is preparing for Micah Parsons to play next week. So let's talk about that and everything else, but first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Got a lot of exciting updates to get into, but before we get into that, some exciting news I wanted to announce. Underdog is back as an official season-long sponsor again. So if you're looking to play the best option in fantasy sports, all you have to do is scan the QR code or use code PHILLYSPECIAL, and whenever you play $5, you'll get $50 in bonus credit. Also, I had several people reaching out to ask about the Fantasy Football League and if there were any openings, and unfortunately, there aren't.
I know, I should have. I'm sorry.
I'll be honest, it kind of snuck up on us this year, so I wasn't as organized. Would have loved to have this thing a little bit more structured, but for those that were not able to play, I got a good option for you. Because there's a couple more openings in the Underdog Best Ball Leagues, whether it's a $10 entry or a $25 entry. All you got to do is check out the link in the description to sign up and join today, which, just FYI, there's only a few more spots left, but there are a couple remaining. Again, if you use code PHILLYSPECIAL with that deposit, you'll get some extra bonus credits as well. So thank you to Underdog, and also it's because of their support that every game stream during the season, I'm going to have the opportunity for someone to win any jersey of their choice, and more info on that in an upcoming video. Anyway, on the topic of jerseys, there's definitely going to be a few significant changes. After the Eagles' final 53-man roster had several interesting decisions. Although for the quarterback position, that went exactly how Howie Roseman anticipated. Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, and Sam Howell as the QB3 after trading for him and waiving rookie Kyle McCord. For the record, Tanner McKee is dealing with a fracture on his thumb on his throwing hand, but Howie did confirm on Tuesday that the Birds would have traded for Howell regardless of McKee's injury, which tells you everything you need to know about McCord's performance in camp.
This guy sucks.
I guess you never know. Perhaps McCord turns into something. Thankfully, hey, look, the Eagles get a chance to develop him. I thought that, they might lose out on him, but they did sign him back to the practice squad on Wednesday. But like I mentioned on a previous video, you still feel more comfortable about the QB room with Howell than you do a rookie. After all, it's like Howie said when referencing Howell in that he knows the player very well. Heck, Zach Berman pointed this out too, but the Birds GM has only attended one Thursday college football game in person the last 10 years, and take a guess which one that was. Yep, the North Carolina versus Pitt game in 2021, featuring the iconic viral clip that everyone uses when Howie's on the prowl. And wouldn't you know it, but the two quarterbacks playing in that game were Kenny Pickett and Sam Howell, with Pitt storming out to an early lead before North Carolina mounted a serious comeback just to fall short in overtime. Yet here you have it now that Philly has ended up adding both quarterbacks to the roster over the last two seasons. Granted, Pickett was traded to Cleveland over the offseason and is actually now in Las Vegas after the Browns traded him to the Raiders ahead of the season. But what I think the move goes to show, and honestly reaffirm to a lot of us what we already knew, is that when Howie Roseman does something out of the norm, you certainly pay attention. So let's pay attention to some of the roster updates, with the Birds going at running back Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, and A.J. Dillon. Kind of straightforward, although there were some beat writers who thought A.J. Dillon may not make it with a veteran's exemption in play for a practice squad move. Of course, obviously that wasn't the case, and then Philly also elected to keep a fullback on the roster in Ben Van Sumeren, with owner Jeffrey Lurie saying they intend to revitalize that position this season. And yeah, I know it was a small sample size, but like I've covered in the past, when Ben Van Sumeren last season was on the field with Saquon Barkley, the efficiency was through the roof. It was 6.2 yards per carry.
Let's do that.
No doubt that's exciting, and I'm really hoping that we get just a little bit more of a dose of fullback plays this season. Yet the most anticipated news may have been what happened at wide receiver, as the Eagles elected to keep 5 guys: A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Jahan Dotson, John Mechie, and undrafted free agent Darius Cooper. Of course, that did send former 5th-round pick Ainias Smith packing as he eventually signed with Carolina. Plus, Johnny Wilson suffering a season-ending injury helped add a spot, but kudos to Cooper for flat-out dominating throughout camp and the preseason. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much he plays, but Anthony DeBona would caution anyone thinking Darius Cooper's just a bottom-of-the-roster candidate.
Maybe I'm crazy, but I think he's wide receiver 4 right now. I think he's impressed everybody. I feel like the fact that you talked about how he sat out those developmental periods that Brandon Lee Gowton had mentioned, where it seems like he's almost ahead of the other guys like John Mechie and obviously ahead of Ainias Smith because he was let go, of course, by the team. And I mean, it seems like he's trending in that direction, right? I mean, we'll see what happens. Who's going to be? I don't know if they're going to keep both him and John Mechie active on game day. I think they'll probably just go with 4 active receivers, but it will be interesting to see if it's Cooper or Mechie if they do only go with one of them, because like you mentioned, he was playing all over on special teams, on all the like coverage units, the return units. Like they were clearly showing interest in the different roles that he can play.
Obviously, there's a lot to like about Cooper, and I've talked about him on a number of videos, but what a story, man. I mean, going from undrafted free agent to making the Eagles roster. And you could just see how far he's come, because Coop admitted it was a bit of a culture shock when he first got in the huddle with the ones.
My first time going with the ones, going with Jalen Hurts, and he was calling the play. And I was like right next to him. He called the play, and I'm looking at him. And I'm like, I'm next to Jalen Hurts right now. Like, this is crazy. He called the play. We broke the huddle. Didn't know what I was doing at all. And I'm like, oh snap! Eventually, I ran the right route and everything like that. But that was definitely a welcome to the league moment.
The question now really is, what number should he go with to get out of 41? And feel free to let me know in the comments. Now, onto the tight ends for a second. So Howie decided to go with 3 guys: Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, and Kylen Granson. Granted, not a surprise if you've been following throughout camp, yet Johnny Page threw out the thought that given the current makeup, if Dallas Goedert goes down, the blocking game is going to take a serious hit. Something that was very evident in the loss to Washington last season, although, sure, that game had several Eagles missing, including Jalen Hurts, so not necessarily exactly the same scenario. But the combination of less than ideal blocking backups there, along with missing out or losing Johnny Wilson for the season, definitely made me think the Eagles would try to shore up something in the practice squad. And it appears one of those potential answers is E.J. Jenkins, after Philly did, in fact, bring him back to the practice squad. Still, I don't know if that's a long-term answer, but it does at least provide a little bit of help for the blocking area. Of course, speaking of blocking, the O-line is going to be 10 guys.
That can't be right.
All right, so technically, the initial cut down said that there was 11 guys in the O-line, but then Trevor Keegan, it was announced that he was a late cut after the 53-man roster was announced, so we'll see how that shakes out. But Trevor Keegan was cut, bringing it back to 10 guys, then 11 because of another move, but I'll fill you in here. So the starters are left tackle Jordan Mailata, left guard Landon Dickerson, center Cam Jurgens, right guard Tyler Steen, and right tackle Lane Johnson. And then for the swing tackle role, that goes to newly traded for Fred Johnson. FYI, Howie did answer questions in response to people criticizing him for not bringing Fred back at the end of last year, saying, look, just because we didn't sign him doesn't mean we weren't trying to sign him. The realistic part to all this is that Johnson just saw a better chance to play elsewhere, and it didn't pan out. So once that didn't happen in Jacksonville, Howie was keen on making the call to him. As I said on the live stream, that was an A-plus move, and honestly, it might end up being the best move from the Eagles from 2025. Of course, the question of Trevor Keegan being released was quickly answered by the Birds claiming 5'11", 279-pound center Willie Lampkin from the Los Angeles Rams. And yeah, you're not alone in thinking that's pretty dang small for an offensive lineman. Heck, he's got some quickness, but the size and strength alone gave him a very below-average grade when compared to other centers for athleticism coming out of the draft. However, when it comes to the tape, Lampkin put work in during the Senior Bowl, but it wasn't enough to get him drafted. And this is despite him being one of the best wrestlers in high school, finishing his senior season with a 47-0 record. Look, you can see it, like Eric mentioned, that it shows up all over his tape. He plays with great leverage, has advanced hand usage, and quick feet, plus there's no doubt he has a whole lot of toughness. And then even after the Rams signed him, his impressive performances during the preseason weren't enough for him to earn a spot, which is somewhat crazy when you take into account that Lampkin was the highest graded rookie offensive lineman in the NFL preseason. To be fair, LA's designation were due to ankle and knee injuries, so, a little bit more of a reason why, but you can clearly see Philly's interest in him and potential for development. Having said that, that means the other 5 depth additions on the O-line are Matt Pryor, rookie Drew Kendall, Willie Lampkin that we discussed, rookie Cameron Williams, and Brett Toth, despite the thinking that surely the Eagles wouldn't keep him on the 53-man roster.
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
By the way, rookie Myles Hinton wasn't cut for those wondering, but he is headed to the IR after the Eagles placed an injury designation on him ahead of the deadline. Not gonna lie, I was with Anthony, who had suggested before that Cameron Williams might be one of those targets to be on the IR instead of Myles Hinton, which makes me think, as Anthony alluded to as well or said during the live stream, Myles Hinton is probably injured. Either way, you keep both guys and we're okay. Because like Howie said, the thought of chancing missing out on Williams was too great.
A guy like Cam, and you got to look at it a little bit like if this guy went back into school, where would he be a year from now? Where can we get this guy 2 years from now? What would that look like? And so when you kind of look at the roster like coach allows us to do, where we're saying, all right, well, it's 1 through 70 and we got to really make sure 1 through 48 are ready for the games, but we have a couple of spots where we can make sure we're developing guys and we're not losing them to claim. It's really part of the strategy that we're trying to do here, and not try to hurt the team in the short term, but also understand if these guys can help us down the road and save us a really high draft pick, man, that's incredible value.
Again, that's 11 guys on the O-line, but like Howie said multiple times, there's one area. The trenches are the one area that he cannot quit acquiring players.
Is there a limit?
Not really. Therefore, it makes sense that Vic Fangio was in agreement to keep 6 interior defensive linemen, with those being Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ajomo, Ty Robinson, Gabe Hall, let's kill my guy made it, and Byron Young. Like I say, you can never have too many pass rushers, which is why Philly then kept 5 edges: Nolan Smith, Jalyx Hunt, Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari, and the surprising addition of Obo Okoronkwo instead of guys like Patrick Johnson or rookie Antoine Powell-Ryland. Kind of felt like the special teams ability of Patrick Johnson would outweigh Obo's contribution or ability there, or at least certainly to have a rookie, the veteran exemption or exception like we talk about, but APR not making it either. Clearly the Eagles saw something in Okoronkwo's game and said, you know what, we're going to take a chance on it. Anyway, as for the linebackers, it's 4 guys with a Nakobe Dean going on the PUP list, as based on his Instagram story, it sounds like he'll be good to go by Week 5 versus Denver. I mean, your guess is as good as mine at how Fangio is going to implement the defense with Dean, Jahad Campbell, and Zach Bond, but the creative options are endless. And regardless if and when Nakobe's ready, he can still be a massive difference maker when he's out there on the field.
What was your leadership style when you were at Georgia?
Learning personnel, know your guys. You can't do that. I couldn't do that to everybody on the defense, and it had them respond like that. Me knowing Channing, me being in the same room with Channing, you kind of know what get guys going. And that's what that was. He knew it. He didn't take it. And he didn't take it personal for sure, because it wasn't personal. It was strictly about the play. It was strictly about wanting to get better. Yeah, I mean, tensions was high. We was in the national championship, but. Yeah, I mean, I actually had one NFL coach who actually did not like that. I remember having a meeting with him via Zoom, and he I don't know if he was trying to like get me ticked off or something, or he was just he was like, yeah, we don't do that in the league, and this, that, and the third. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not the linebacker for you.
Well, it seems like, I mean, on the Eagles defense, you guys do really hold each other accountable.
For sure. For sure, that's one of the biggest things, and that comes, big shout out to Nick Sirianni. That comes with the togetherness, the connection standpoint that he preached. You know, you in the NFL, it's hard. NFL team, it's hard to kind of preach connection of a team. You got 30, 31, 32, 30-some-year-old men playing with 21-year-olds, and they got wife and kids. 21-year-old ain't got nothing. You know, so it's like it's hard to try to make them have a connection, which you're probably. I talk to guys who in the league, and some of they head coaches and anything don't even try to appreciate. They just like they don't even try to push for it. But you know, Sirianni actually pushed for it, and I feel like the best teams I've been around had some type of connection that was real, that kind of went deeper than ball, but it was all like you were able to hold somebody accountable, because you have that deeper connection with them off the field.
Look, for those wondering why or what it is about the Eagles that make them different, it's just the connection. It's like Nakobe's talking about there. The connection is next level. And quite honestly, that's one of the first things you'll notice if you get the chance to hang out with the fellas at any event. Which, by the way, if you want to get a chance at that, reminder, the Eagles Radiothon is live, but will be closing very soon. But there's still experiences like golfing with Saquon Barkley and Jason Kelce, just throwing this out there, but happy to be a fourth if you need someone to complete the foursome. Or there's axe throwing with the O-lineman, painting the field with Lane Johnson, going behind the scenes for an exciting Mike's podcast, or watching a 76ers game in a suite with the Philly Dogs, along with countless other experiences to bid on. The best part is that the proceeds benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation, so they go to an incredible cause. Check it out. I got a link in the description, or I'm also going to tweet it out for people tweeting or following on social media. I'll blast it out there. But anything that you can give with, you could support, any opportunities, make sure to do that. As always, shout out to the Eagles Autism Foundation for the amazing work they do and for the unbelievable previous collabs and ones planned in the future. All right, having brought up Zach Bond, here's the official names again at linebacker. Zach Bond, Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Smile Munden. Which brings us to the corner position. So the Eagles kept Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Adoree Jackson, Kelee Ringo, rookie Mac McWilliams, and Jakorian Bennett. Now, naturally, what we've seen from training camp as well as in the preseason has continued to ring the bells about adding another cornerback, and specifically, Asante Samuel Jr.'s name has come up quite a bit. However, a pulse check there from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler revealed that after making visits with teams in April and May and then getting a checkup in July on his progress, Samuel is slated to undergo a CT scan in October to ensure he had successful spinal fusion, with that being the earliest point for teams to potentially look at adding him on the roster. So yeah, makes a lot more sense of why that hasn't happened yet. Teams have not signed him. For people clamoring to say, hey, they should get this done, get Asante Samuel Jr., a little bit more patience now. And that brings us to the safety position, where we have 4 guys who made the 53. Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, rookie Drew Mukuba, and Tristan McCollum. Well, I should clarify because actually Tristan McCollum was briefly on the 53-man roster before getting waived so that long snapper Charlie Hewlett, who was initially not on the 53, could now be on the 53-man roster. Also, Andre Sam does appear to be signing with a practice squad, and it was apparently a close call between he and McCollum for that 4th spot, but alas, it doesn't really matter because neither of them ended up making the 53. Moving on, though, when it comes to special teams, we got kicker Jake Elliott, punter Braden Mann, and now Charlie Hewlett, who was signed there, so he makes out the 3rd guy on special teams. So there you go. There's your current 53-man roster for Philly. I doubt that it'll stay that way for very long because Howie continues to make moves, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anything you would have changed, done differently, let me know. If anything, at least it's not the Washington Commanders, who, like Jimmy Kimsky pointed out, have the oldest roster in the league this season. In fact, over the last 13 years, the Commanders this season have the oldest roster by a mile compared to any of the previous oldest teams entering the season. Whereas on the flip side, the Eagles are right behind the Green Bay Packers for the youngest roster in the league. And I don't know what's more terrifying for the NFL, the fact that Philly is this good and also this young of a roster, or the reality that Howie Roseman still isn't close to being done making moves.
We're not done here. We're not done. We'll see what happens in the next 24 hours. I think I said this the last time we spoke. We got a lot of picks here, and we're happy to use those picks in the draft. But I think for us, the early part of the season, September, we got to see what we have, and if we need something, I'll do whatever I can to help this football team and be aggressive. And Jeffrey gives me that opportunity to do that. And so, I don't think that we're done. I don't think this is necessarily, this is a work in progress.
Not giving me the keys quite yet.
Yeah, not yet. No, he's going to drive. But we're going to continue sitting together. But I think that's where we got to be. And I would say this, obviously last year was a great year, and throughout the year we're trying to improve the team, and I think that even after the trade deadline, you're sitting there and you're going, hey, is there anything else we can do? Is there things that we can continue to do? So I don't sit here, no matter what the year is, no matter what the time of the year is, and feel content with what we're doing, and just will continue to look for opportunities. And I promise when I leave here, I will go back upstairs and we will be looking for opportunities tonight, tomorrow, and we'll continue to look through them, every day here until we stop playing, and then we'll take a couple-day break, and then we'll keep looking for guys.
What do you think? Having heard that, any bold predictions for Howie to make over the next few days? I mean, I guess we shouldn't count out a significant contribution coming late. After all, like Anthony DeBona reminded, the Eagles claimed Byron Young off waivers from the Raiders following final cuts in 2024. Which, yes, it did take a while for Young to make his mark, but now he's on the active 53-man roster. Also, for those curious about the practice squad players, the Eagles shared the following guys that were signed. Linebacker Chance Campbell, wide receiver Elijah Cooks, guard Kenyon Green, tight end E.J. Jenkins that I mentioned, cornerback Brandon Johnson, outside linebacker Patrick Johnson, tight end Cameron Latu, wide receiver Terrace Marshall, quarterback Kyle McCord, cornerback Perry Nickerson, tackle Holland Pierce, outside linebacker Antoine Powell-Ryland, cornerback Eli Ricks, and safety Andre Sam. Granted, almost immediately after that update, Jordan Schultz broke the news the Eagles signed running back Audric Estime from the Denver Broncos. Which, shouldn't be that big of a surprise seeing the interest that Philly's running back coach Jamal Singleton was showing back before when he was drafted, or the fact that Anthony DeBona also called that move before it happened. Still though, for those not as up on him, he only had 310 yards on 76 carries with 2 touchdowns, good for a 4.1 yards per carry average in 2024. And he also fumbled twice, so he needs to clean that up, but I'm interested to see if his bruising style can eventually lead to something long-term. I mean, either way, I love the potential there, and why not take a swing to see what he can provide? Anyway, it's wild to think that we're just about a week away from the Eagles opener against Dallas. Yet there's still no progress towards Michael Parsons playing in that one. Of course, it might be Micah Parsons, Michael Parsons, whoever, but Lane Johnson isn't allowing himself to let his guard down one bit.
There's a great quote from one of my former coaches, Dave Phipp. He'd always say, expect their best and be disappointed if they don't bring it. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm expecting him to play, be out there. If he's not, great. If he is, great. But, as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready for Micah. And, all the other stuff I can't control. It's just, how contract negotiations go. Teams go at their own pace.
Sure.
So it is what it is.
Look, even if Dallas doesn't have all their guys, that game is clearly going to be hype. And even more so given the recent updates from the Eagles' latest practice. Because first off, A.J. Brown was back practicing and showing no signs of significant limitations according to beat writers in attendance. Meanwhile, Landon Dickerson was also out there to get in some contact drills. And heck, even Tanner McKee was back in a limited capacity. So that's why I say it's just about the best case scenario a week ahead of the Cowboys game. Honestly, the only area with a little bit of a letdown is the fact that rookie Drew Mukuba is still being held out due to his hamstring injury, suggesting that he more than likely won't be a go for Thursday, but you never know. Look, either way, I'm believing in Sidney Brown, so he should be fine, but I'll say it again, that game regardless is going to be hype. Which is why congrats to Louis Vuitton 6181 for winning the 2 Eagles tickets to any regular season game this season. For the record, you can pick whichever game you want, but why wouldn't you go to the opener? All I need you to do is email me at thephillyspecialshow@gmail.com or DM me on one of the socials. I need to hear back from you. And the same goes for Lights Out 0829 for winning the signed Zach Bond rookie card during the last live stream as well. As always, if I don't hear back from him, I'm going to give those away to someone else on the upcoming live stream next week. So make sure your notifications are turned on, drop a like, make sure you're subbed, and I'll catch you on the next one. This has been The Philly Special.